the citrus. All of these are citrus trees, and they all need to be up potted, which I'm going to do a video on that very soon, because as you can see from the calamandan tree, I've got this big old huge tree in this little tiny bucket. So this will be a video that's coming very soon, because I have a lot of plants that need to be up potted, and I'll explain what up potting is in that video in case you don't know. Alright, hey everybody, so today let's talk about up potting. What is it? Why is it important? And why should we do it? Okay, what is up potting? Up potting for me, the way I'm going to explain it, is when you take a plant, say a seedling, once they outgrow this size of a pot, move it to another pot. Once it outgrows that, move it to another one, and another, and another. So you're constantly up potting your plants. This is particularly important for plants that need a lot of room to grow. So let me give you an example of a plant that needs to be up potted right now that we're going to do right now. Let's do it. Okay, so let's take my favorite plant of all, the calamandan. As you can see, it's in this little tiny pot. And if you can look, and if you see how big this thing is, it has absolutely outgrown this pot. So it needs to be in a bigger pot. A pot like that, a 5-gallon pot. Or if I had another one of these big pots, I would just go ahead and plant it in that. But I don't. So this pot right here is too small for the size of that plant. So I'm going to go ahead and up pot it. Now, the important thing is the root system. You don't want the roots to get bound for the plant to be what's called root bound, where they just circle and circle and circle and circle. That's not good for the plant. So you have to up pot it to give that plant room for those roots to grow. Now eventually this plant's going to have to come out of these containers, which is fine. I'll just find a bigger pot, or I'll just keep pruning the tree to keep it small. Okay, so I want to give an example of a really root bound plant that I got from a local nursery the other day. So in my front yard, I like things to be completely different than the backyard. I don't have a lot in the front yard compared to the backyard, which is fine, but what I put up front, I want not necessarily to make a statement, but just to look good. So I went and bought some plants, and we're going to see how bad this thing was root bound. Okay, so let's take this plant right here for example. When you're up potting a plant, you're not only looking to give the plant more space to grow, as this plant obviously needs, but look what else happens. The roots need a place to go. So up potting helps the plant in every way you can think of. It helps these roots grow and go where they need to go. And this is a clear-cut sign that this plant has outgrown this container. So let's get it in the ground. Look at how bad that is. Oh my goodness. Okay, this is the worst example of a plant being root bound that I've honestly ever seen. And this is, again, why it is so important to up pot your plants. Okay, so as you saw how bad that plant was root bound, one other thing I haven't said is up potting doesn't necessarily mean, at least for me, to put something in another pot or another pot or another pot. Up potting could be taking something from a container and sticking it in the ground or in your raised bed. Anything to where you're giving that plant more room is technically up potting. So now, of course, we call that planting into the garden or into your flower bed, but it's still kind of the same thing. It's still up potting. You're moving that plant to a bigger container. And if your garden is a container, well then I guess you could technically call it up potting when you're planting. Of course, that's not really what you think of when you think of up potting, but let's just keep it real. Now, here's a way to tell if you need to up pot your plant. If you were to take your plant out of its container and flip it upside down, could it fit in that container? If it can't, you need to up pot it. Now that's kind of drastic, I know. Keep that within reason, but this plant desperately needs to be up potted. So we're gonna go ahead and up pot it right now. Let's do it. Okay, so we are going to take that calamondin from that other pot, which is the same size as this one, and we're gonna put it in the pot this size, which is a 5 gallon. Now, as you can see, this will give that calamondin plant a lot more room for those roots to grow. And that is the most important thing, is giving it that extra room to grow. Okay, so I've gone ahead and filled this up with soil. It's about right there. I'm gonna open it up so I can get that in there. And then we're gonna see how bad this is root bound when I take it out of here. I have not done this yet, so I do not know the answer to this, but I suspect it's gonna be pretty root bound. All right, it's a moment of truth. Now the good thing about this plant is it does not have thorns. So I don't have to worry about getting stuck. And you just want to kind of break the suction of the soil. I'm actually kind of surprised. This thing is not root bound like I thought it would be, and it's definitely not like that other plant that I showed earlier. So I think this plant's good and healthy. The roots seem to be fine. Putting it in this bigger pot is definitely going to help it continue to grow and mature. And as you can see, this thing is already putting off lots of fruit, so it'll only help with that also. Okay, and there we go. It's good and potted. Got some dirt in my nails. We're out there in the garden doing what we need to do to take care of our plants. So there is a perfect example of up potting, going from that size little container to that 5 gallon container. That is what up potting is. There's not a lot to up potting. You just have to remember that when your plant starts to get too big for its pot, you need to move it to a bigger pot. That benefits the plant in every way you can imagine, both from growing, the roots being good and strong, and then if you're going to take your plant from a container and stick it in the ground in a raised bed or a garden, up potting only allows those roots to continue to grow and strengthen. So it might be a little tedious moving one plant from the seed tray to a bigger pot, and then bam, you get it in the ground. It is a little tedious, but you know what? It's incredibly important for the health of that plant, and it'll make that plant a stronger, more vibrant plant once you actually get it to its final place, whether it's in a larger container or in your garden. I hope everyone learned something from this. Last year, I didn't really do a lot of the up potting, and I think I struggled with it, not gonna lie. This year though, I'm gonna be real vigilant on up potting all my plants, especially the plants that I will keep in containers. I will continue to up pot them. Pretty much everything over here that is on this raised container system needs to be up potted. So I've got a lot of work to do, which is fun, part of it, right? All right, everyone, so that's the video. If y'all enjoyed this, hit the like button. If you learned anything from it, please share it. Share the knowledge, share the wealth. That's what the gardening community here on YouTube is all about. It's helping each other, it's giving tips, it's sharing secrets, well, maybe not secrets, but sharing your tips and your advice, and hey, I did this wrong last year, try it this way, etc., etc. But be sure to share the video if you found it educational at all. Check me out on Facebook and Instagram, Down Home Backyard Gardening, and everybody, as always, shine bright and harvest hard. Example of a plant that was badly in need of up potting, and I did that. I got it in the ground. So why don't we jump to that right now? I will continue to up pot them, and I have pretty much everything on this raised container. Pretty much everything on this raised container garden, pretty much everything over here that is on this raised container system needs to be up.